All right, Scorpios, welcome. We're going to talk about the eclipse happening September 18th in the sign of Pisces, as well as so there's some Aries influence in there as well, because it's happening right at the very end of Pisces, and then very quickly after the actual eclipse, the moon moves into Aries. So there's a bit of both influences. So there's some interesting things going on here. So the general theme here for Scorpio is I think there's going to be sort of a realization, an illumination. The universe is going to expose an area where you maybe are over compromising when it comes to your friend groups. I think, in the sense of maybe kind of just doing what everybody else wants to do. Scorpio likes to merge with things. You guys get very very close, which makes you. I would say tarot is associated with Scorpio. So you guys tend to be kind of psychic, and you're really probably very good with tarot cards. Astrology is more Aquarius. Tarot would be more Scorpio. Um, and so there's this kind of tendency to really get in there and really understand the inner workings of people, and just there can be a sort of merging that happens. But when this gets out of hand and you do that with too many people, you can start to feel a little confused. You can start to feel like you're taking on other people's emotions as well as other people's interests. So I feel like there may be a situation where you're starting to feel like you've maybe taken on the interests of your friend circles and your social interactions, in order to kind of please them. And you're kind of maybe getting kind of tired of this and feeling like you want to find kind of to have your own fun. You want the things you want to do for fun. You might not want your friends might not so much be into, or maybe you want to do certain things that really are kind of more solo projects, solo endeavors where you spend more time by yourself, with the North Node being in Aries here, and the Moon being pretty much conjunct to the North Node at the time of the eclipse, but it's close enough, so I'm going to say it's a conjunction, along with Neptune in retrograde here. So these three are all conjunct at the time of this eclipse. So there's, like I said, this illumination where you realize that there are certain people in your life that may even kind of try to guilt you into it. Lilith is a very is a kind of the toxic influence. It's the temptress. It's the Lilith is known as the mother of demons in mythology, and in astrology here, Lilith kind of represents the thing that you feel tempted to do that ultimately ends up not being good for you. It can show where there are toxic influences in your life. And being in Libra, Lilith is the poisoner. She takes whatever she touches and turns it into a weapon of manipulation. It's a very dark energy. People who think that Lilith is a symbol of female empowerment have kind of missed out on all the rest of the stuff that is said. The mythology of Lilith. It's not about that at all. Um, a little bit of a sidebar here. Lilith, that story that everybody's heard about Lilith is how she was supposed to be like the first wife of Adam, and then she refused to sleep with him. She didn't want to be underneath him. She wanted to be on top. That's not a literal story. That is not about somebody who a strong, independent woman who don't need no man. This is a symbolic thing of somebody using the feminine qualities to get over on someone, to get on top of someone, to control them. So these biblical stories are never meant to be taken literally. These are all symbolic and metaphorical for states of consciousness and energies. So Lilith here, there could be friends in your life who use affection and love and make you feel special and good about yourself, but they use it as a weapon to kind of to get under your skin and then manipulate you through guilt trips. They get you to really to kind of fall for them, to be like, oh, well, you're so great, you make me feel so good about myself, I love hanging out with you. But then they use that as a weapon to kind of them withdraw their affection and their attention, to start trying to guilt trip you into doing things that they want you to do instead of you doing what you want to do. And you can't do that to Scorpio for too long. You guys will catch on to that. You figure out the secrets. You see when somebody's trying to manipulate you. But we all have blind spots. And so you might be kind of recognizing that certain people may have slipped into that blind spot. And it's not anything like, I don't think this has anything to do with romantic relationships or work relationships. This is your friends. This is all about friends and fun, what you do for fun. And maybe you don't get to have as much fun as you'd like because You're too busy doing everybody else's thing. They want to go hiking and camping, and you want to go paint or something. Just as a random example, I don't know what you might be into, um, but just as an example, yeah. And then this is starting to build up, and you're starting to maybe get a little bit frustrated with it. But I feel like with Ceres down here, Ceres is the asteroid that represents kind of a lack of growth. It's the stunted growth. It's kind of the late bloomer in the chart. Being in the third house, it's like maybe in the past you haven't really developed the communication skills to be able to speak up about these sorts of things and in a non-confrontational kind of way, or maybe you're afraid that it's going to cause a confrontation, and you really value the stability of the people of friendships, and like you don't like to just change friends all the time. When you get close to somebody, again, that Scorpio, that merging, you get very close to them. You don't want to let them go. You don't want to lose these people. But that fear of losing certain relationships may have made you kind of develop a tendency to hold back and kind of bite your tongue and not say certain things and just do what they want to do, because you value keeping them in your life more than you have valued being able to just do your own thing. But I think that's changing. I think you're starting to be like, look, I want to live my own life. I want to do the things that I think are fun, even if you don't like them, even if I have to do it by myself. In fact, you may find that there are certain things that you really like to do by yourself where you might have to say no. Like your friends want you to go do this thing with them, but you'd rather do your own thing, be by yourself and do your own thing. And you're afraid that if you do that, they're going to stop inviting you out, or they're going to get offended, and you're going to lose these connections. If that happens, if you do lose those connections, well, then they're not really friends anyways. They're just using you as a prop in their own sort of endeavors. Um, there needs to be a balance there. It's not to say you just should never do what your friends, compromise and go hang out with what they want to do instead of what you feel like doing all the time. But again, there needs to be this balance here, or else frustrations build up. And then it tends to increase. The longer you put this off, you put off kind of doing your thing and finding what you want to do for fun, the more this tendency tends to grow. And eclipses tend to cause things to boil over. And this is probably a pattern that began a long, long time ago, maybe like in childhood even. To where, with the sun in Virgo in this third decan, which is, the third decan is associated with Taurus. So this is something that's been there for a long time. This is like a foundational aspect of your psyche that is being brought to the surface and made to be looked at, because it's time. The universe is like, okay, it's time for you to look at this and stop doing this. And if you don't, then the lesson kind of gets more and more and more harsh over time. And the more you can sort of get with it and address this head on, preferably before this eclipse actually happens, if possible. If you're watching this before that happens, you can find that the lessons become much less harsh, and there can be less painful consequences for doing it. But ultimately, I often say with with these situations around eclipses, you kind of don't have a choice, because the universe is gonna cause this to boil over. It's gonna turn it up to 11, and so that you can't ignore it anymore. It's really only a matter of how harsh the lesson needs to be, and how long you try to push it away and hide from it. The more you get with it, the easier it's going to be. And, spoiler alert, the universe is bigger and stronger than you are when it comes to this kind of stuff. And it's very powerful. It can orchestrate situations in a way that you really don't have a choice. It's been gentle in the past, and it's kind of getting to where, like, I'm not going to be so gentle anymore. It's time to stop putting yourself out like this. Time to say no sometimes and do what you want to do, or maybe convince those other people to do what you want to do for you for a little while, since you're always doing that for them. Why can't they do that for you? Or just do things by yourself, whatever. So this is kind of one of a less serious one. A lot of the other signs have a serious tone, but this really is a lot more about you really just choosing to have more fun in the way that you want to. I mean, who doesn't want to do that? Even if it means certain people are gonna not like it. So what? Let's see what else.